We will now hear from Zehra Mould at SmashBox and Zehra Chatoo at Gottlieb OMD. They plan to share some findings in applying artificial intelligence effectively. After watching challenger brands grow in the beauty industry, they commissioned proprietary research into quantifying the relationship between challenger brands and purchase intent, and whether an established brand has the right to play in this area. The findings led to a shift in strategy for Estee Lauder Companies. On stage, we will have Zehra Mould, who has been head of e-commerce and digital marketing at SmashBox Cosmetics since 2015, building the SmashBOT chatbot and launching a new responsive site last year. And before that, she worked at Misguided and John Frieda. Joining her is Zehra Chatoo, Head of Strategy Development at Gottlieb OMD. Zehra focuses on how communications can have the maximum possible impact on a client's brand and business performance, and she is a multiple award winner as well. So please join me in welcoming Zehra and Zehra.
Great, thank you. Right, so we're going to take you through, as you said, a piece of proprietary research to quantify the value of challenger brands because they've had a real demonstrable impact within the beauty category. And we'll take you through how SmashBox, the beauty brand, really had a shift in marketing because of this research. So, I'll take you through the research. I'm Zehra.
And I'm Sarah, e-commerce and digital manager for SmashBox.
So historically, challenger brands have been defined as the underdog. Their communications has been based on the enemy, really taking on the enemy. And of course, Virgin Atlantic is the perfect example of this. So the image on the left is the brilliant piece, BA Can't Get It Up. Really great stunt when British Airways was sponsoring the London Eye. The London Eye literally could not be lifted off the ground, and Branson came in with this piece of stunt comms, and it was brilliant, and it got a lot of attention. And of course, BA Don't Give a Shiatsu, great advertising again when Virgin Atlantic were launching their massage service in flight. So that's kind of typical traditional behaviour of challenger brands. But the issue is categories are no longer defined by two players. Digital has really propelled several brands to enter the market. One, because of direct consumer routes to market, we no longer have to rely on bricks and mortar. Low barriers to entry in terms of advertising reach. We no longer need the huge kind of TV budgets as we did before. And it's these smaller challenger brands that are really kind of being incredibly successful in stealing share. They're being swiftly consolidated and they're having a huge impact. And if we were just to look at a few categories, baby, snacks, cereal, and beauty, you can see it's the smaller challenger brands that are driving growth within these categories. And the red bar shows the top 10 brands, and these established brands are either in decline or growing at a much slower rate. It's the challenger brands that are really driving this space. And here is an example of Procter & Gamble's portfolio, and you can see the multiple brands just kind of fighting for share within that space, which just shows you what established brands are up against. And it's these smaller brands that are really kind of over-delivering against a niche consumer need and over-delivering in a really powerful way. So, as a result, challenger brands are less about who you're challenging, they're less about challenging the competitor, and they're more about what you're challenging something for the audience, over-delivering on a consumer need, and doing that incredibly successfully. And so when we talk about challenger brands are less about who you're challenging and more about what you're challenging, they're challenging mediocrity, they're challenging one-size-fits-all, and they're challenging status quo. They're challenging a set way of doing things. So given this, we were very keen to really quantify, right, we can see the success of these brands. How do we quantify what they're doing? And can established brands borrow these challenger behaviours and have a demonstrable impact in the same way as challenger brands are having? So we had a 3-stage piece of research. We did qual, quant, and modelling. Within our qualitative research, we spoke to our 18 to 34 audience across the country, held several focus groups to really get a better understanding of how they view challenger brands, what are the most motivating themes that challenger brands are adopting, and what's really having an impact for them. We then had a quantitative survey where we quantified what these challenger themes were. And we also quantified non-challenger themes as well, such as trust and expertise and heritage. We then modelled these brand themes against purchase intent to understand how likely these themes led to purchase. And there are three key things that we found that we want to share with you. The first is consumers use 6 key themes when they talk about challenger brands. They are individuality, brands with a really clear sense of identity, providing a brand experience both in physical and digital spaces, behaving in a purposeful way and caring about something our audience cares about, constantly innovating, being ahead of the curve, a sense that they get me, a sense that they understand my needs and anticipate them before I even know I need something, and they're attention grabbing. So those were the 6 key themes. We then quantified these themes along with quantifying non-challenger brand themes. And examples of these, like I said, were trust, familiarity, heritage, expertise, use of ambassadors. And based on this, we identified what were the top 4 brand themes when it comes to purchase intent. And the top 4 were a brand that gets me, followed by trust, purposeful, and familiarity. And the interesting thing about this is, number 1, a brand that gets me is more than double anything else. This sense of a brand that really understands me as part of my life and anticipates my needs before I even know I want something is key. The second key thing was it's actually the combination of challenger brand themes and established brand themes that are really a winning combination. And what that shows us is established brands can absolutely adopt these challenger themes and combine it and marry it up with their own themes to deliver on success. And so that's the 4 key drivers of purchase intent. And we were also able to model that if you're able to shift the dial by 1 on a scale of 1 to 10, we will increase ad spend by 12%. So we know these themes are important, but we also know they drive commercial effectiveness. So that was the research. Very interesting for us when it comes to challenger brands, but really important around a brand that gets me. How can we really deliver on this? And if there are two kind of anchors of a brand that gets me, it would be this sense of engineered serendipity, this sense of using data to predict what a consumer anticipates before they even know they need it and providing that for them and over-delivering against that. And the second is really understanding our audience in the moment. Rather than thinking about channels, rather than thinking about platforms, think about the moment our consumer is in terms of their mindset, in terms of their life stage, in terms of how personal the comms needs to be within that moment. So that was our research, and that's great in theory. We then, of course, communicated it to SmashBox, who brought it to life. So I'll hand over to Zehra to take you through that.
So first of all, let me introduce you guys to SmashBox. SmashBox is a makeup brand, part of the Estee Lauder Companies. And the name SmashBox comes from an old-fashioned style accordion camera. And that's because the founders actually were photographers based out in LA, working on photo shoots in their studio. And they found that throughout the shoots, makeup just wasn't lasting under the harsh conditions, so the heating and the light, and this meant that they had to stop quite regularly for makeup touch-ups. And this was really disruptive for their creative flow, and the guys just decided that this wasn't going to work. So they created their own long-wearing range of makeup to overcome this, and then SmashBox was born. So in the UK, SmashBox is in limited distribution with our exclusive retail partners. And because we're not widely available and the brand is still fairly small in size, this means that we do have quite an awareness challenge. So despite not being completely new in the makeup category, SmashBox does actually find itself being on the cusp of a challenger brand. So when we talk about SmashBox, the consumer that we're engaging with is predominantly an 18 to 30-year-old female. She is beauty obsessed, she loves makeup, she's really interested in understanding new products on the market, new trends, and learning how to recreate those herself at home. She's got many other lifestyle interest areas, so career, socialising, health and wellness. She loves fashion, and she really likes to discover trends in this space as well. She's very convenience driven, so brands and apps like Uber and Deliveroo, they really deliver and add value in her hectic life. And we know that she lives on her mobile phone. So she's on social media, she's on messaging, 80% of adults message at least once a day, and for our consumer, that is considerably higher. And we also know that messaging is fast becoming the number one way for consumers to interact with brands. At SmashBox, one of our brand pillars is to always go where our consumer is. So messaging, she's on her phone, she's messaging. This provides us with really easy and convenient access to her. So knowing what we know about the research from Manning Gottlieb, knowing that SmashBox has got that awareness challenge and is a challenger brand, and knowing how our consumer behaves, we decided to launch a chatbot. What's really interesting about the chatbot that we launched is that it provides a number of services and the consumer can access them all via one single touch point. So within our chatbot, the consumer can browse our entire product catalogue, they can look at our newest launches or our cult faves. They can then try on the products wherever they are using our virtual try-on technology. They can browse where the nearest store to them is if they're out and about, and they can view real-time availability for makeup appointments and book in. And this is all done without ever leaving the chatbot. One of the other key things that's important about the chatbot is in those moments of interest to her. So to keep her using the chatbot, we were using it to serve up trend-led content. So if it's Valentine's Day, festival season, or she's looking for holiday makeup, we will serve that regular on-trend content when she needs it the most. The chatbot is being positioned as a member of our amazing makeup crew. So she's on hand 24/7, which is very much in line with our consumer expectation, and she's in the palm of her hand. We've got a key call out on the chatbot is that when we created it, it needed to reflect SmashBox and how fun and playful the brand is. So the tone of voice was really key. You'll notice we use a lot of emojis, a lot of visuals, and the language is very sassy, it's fun, and it's empowering. And that really reflects how we as a brand speak, but also how we know our consumer speaks with her friends. And it was really key that we made that connection with her. And when launching the chatbot, we've actually gained a number of firsts within the market. So this is, when we launched it, this was the first brand in the UK to have virtual try-on technology enabled. And we believe that we've got a global first, that it's the first chatbot that has multi-product try-on. So when you're trying on an eyeshadow palette, for example, you need to be able to try more than one shade at once because that is how the consumer would wear it. So we worked to develop this in order to deliver as a realistic an experience as possible. So launching the chatbot has allowed us to deliver against 4 of the themes that we know are really key in driving that purchase intent. So a brand that gets me, a brand that's there in the moments that are important to me, talking about things that are relevant. Trust, so available 24/7 and in the palm of her hand. Purposeful, so adding value and making a difference in her hectic life. And familiarity, so that fun and playful tone of voice that really connects with her. So we launched the chatbot earlier this year, and the initial feedback's been really positive, both from consumers and from the press. And we've also worked with our internal millennial focus group and done several workshops with those guys to understand what they liked about the chatbot, what they didn't like about it, and what they'd like to see next. Because we very much recognise that we're on a journey with the chatbot. It's never going to be a finished product, because a brand that gets me has to listen and understand the consumer behaviour, the consumer expectation, and as that changes, adapt and be ready to respond to that. So the first phase was very much about getting her to actually use the chatbot. So that was where those key moments of inspiration came in. So Valentine's Day and other events that we knew were important in her life. And once we understand how she's using the chatbot, we can look at any innovations within the scene and also any trends that are emerging and look to adapt it to respond and react to those. And the third phase is really about measuring those results. So we're partnering with Facebook to really understand what the chatbot has actually done, going back to that initial hypothesis of driving the purchase intent so we can measure the impact and really quantify the research that Manning Gottlieb shared. And we know that a challenger brand's work is never done.
So in summary, we know that challenger brand themes have a huge influence on purchase intent, with the number one driver being a brand that gets me. But also we know that it's the combination of these challenger themes with established brand themes that really have a winning success within this category.
The chatbot's a really great example of how a non or a semi-challenger brand can bring those behaviours to life, and that challenger spirit really has to live on every single day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent, amazing stuff. The whole history of a chatbot explained to us. That's brilliant. Thank you very much to you both. Do we have questions for Sarah and Zehra? So we're going to bring the microphone to you, and if you could say where you work, that will help give context to the question.
Hi, Emma Winchurch-Bill, Washington Post. I'm interested, because obviously men do embrace makeup. You refer to she, her. Do you know your male-female split? Do you have an adaptation for men that might want to go into SmashBox and use makeup?
So it's predominantly 90% is female, so it's more about engaging with the majority audience, but we don't try to alienate any male consumers. We're very inclusive, but just for the purpose of the presentation, it's easy to say she. But I feel like the language in the chatbot isn't gender specific.
Thank you. Any more questions? Excellent. We'll bring the microphone to you.
Hi, I'm Mark. I work at Mediacom. What's been the level of interaction? Because the technology looks great, the platform looks great, but it's still, people have got to interact with it.
Yeah.
Are people really wanting to have a virtual chat?
That's a great question. So we do find that the interaction really, it can completely vary. So a key driver of interaction has been putting advertising behind it. So really successful campaigns we've had and we've learnt along the way is if we connect it to an exclusive activity, so that might be offering a free makeup service in store connected to Valentine's Day that you find out through the chatbot and you book in through the chatbot, that's where you'll see great interaction. Or when we've offered first access to a new product launch that you can discover again through the chatbot. But really the vehicle behind that was the media spend that propelled it because...
So where it's a sort of call to action.
Yeah, and then I guess when we've had organic campaigns that have done really well naturally, again, the chatbot will benefit from that. But we have seen conversions off the back of it, which wasn't one of our initial KPIs. We were very much focusing on engagement and usage, but to see then sales come off the back of it has been really positive. But yeah, it's very much a learning for us as a brand, and we do recognise that the media spend is key behind it. But with our consumer group being so young and very interested in digital technology and easy adapting to things like that, we've seen it's more likely that they're going to respond well to that.
I'd like to ask a question. So, did you know you wanted to develop the SmashBOT and then commission the research, or did okay? Can you tell us a bit more about how you explained to the management that you wanted to? I just want a picture of what that management meeting was like.
But I actually used a bit of a joke about how robots are coming to take over our jobs, and kind of had a giant robot holding makeup and just tried to explain it in a fun way, like what a chatbot was, because you're right, there is a lack of awareness of the chatbot within I guess within the industry. So the great thing about Estee Lauder is that they are really interested in test and learn. So we always want to try new technologies. If we believe in the story behind it, which we absolutely did, and we understood the behaviour, we felt like we wanted to test that and just to see and understand what the impact was.
And I think given that we linked it to purchase intent from a research perspective, gave you guys much more confidence in this as well.
It was going to be an enabler, definitely.
Yes.
And did the research lead to anything else, or is there something coming?
Yes, so we did it for the whole of the Estee Lauder Companies group, and we've seen, so there's a shift in comms for Estee Lauder itself. So for example, the platform there is now based on Welcome to the Confidence Collective. So rather than being very product-led, it's based on, support and championing this kind of community of women, essentially, which has come directly from this research. It's also influenced Tom Ford, which is quite an exclusive brand, and it's influenced understanding that consumer need in more detail too. So we're seeing it start to trickle across the portfolio, and examples that have been so successful like SmashBox has really kind of helped do that too.
Excellent, excellent. So it's having an influence
It
beyond.
Is.
Excellent. Any other questions? So let's go into the future then. We're in the Future and Innovation Hub. Where do we see the SmashBOT or other technologies sort of 2 years from now, and then maybe 5 years from now as well? Will the SmashBOT live for 5 years?
Probably not, based on, I don't know, the rate of adoption of technologies and innovation. I'd be surprised, but not to say that it would be completely redundant, but an improved version will be.
And in
whatever
2
the
years?
consumers are doing will drive that, so.
Because it's about listening to the consumers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if the consumers stop using the chatbot, then we will respond to that. We will, we'll take that seriously.
And
It's not about us doing it. It's meant to be for them, so.
And I think that's what we see with challenger brand behaviour. Whichever category it might be in, they're always constantly changing, and they're not afraid to go a completely different direction if it's not working, and that's what we've tried to adopt within all of this.
Mm-hmm. And so in 2 years, I'm going to do my Jeremy Passman, you've avoided the question. In 2 years, where would the SmashBot be? Or what would you like the SmashBot to be able to do that it can't do now, but that it should be able to do within 2 years?
Well, we'd love it to be able to have more natural conversations. So I don't know if you saw from the flow, it's very much guided by preset, programmed conversations that the consumer just quickly presses the button. So it's very much a guided conversation. But obviously there are technologies that would allow us to have a much more free-flowing interaction with the consumer. So, I mean, first things first, we've done this. We need a bit of time to learn and adjust it. I think that would be the next thing we'd like to do. But we're not there just yet.
And can the SmashBot order the makeup for you the way we saw this morning, Google booking a hair appointment? Is that on the agenda?
That would be amazing, yeah. Absolutely.
You're running low. We know you love this.
For my e-commerce business, that would be fantastic, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.